It just felt like a fever dream.
It was insane.
It was insane, and it was a blur.
It was such a blur.
But it was very beginning of December, and they're like giving me the lowdown on what the project is, and they're like, oh, and this is going to air on January 1st. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? And I remember doing quick math in my head and being like, that's not possible. The songs hadn't really fully been written yet. I don't even know if the TikToks that were going to be included had been selected yet. And we're talking about like, the thing is in the can in 3 weeks.
I remember seeing videos of dancers, of singers, of actors doing things from this Ratatouille musical. And at that time I was kind of confused about, was this actually a thing? What's happening? Like, some of the music was a bop, so I was really feeling it. I was like, this is a cute song, but also what's happening? And I remember my husband actually was like, have you ever seen Ratatouille? And I went, no, actually, I don't remember seeing it. So we, that night, watched Ratatouille and I fell in love with it. And it was hilarious because when I finished watching it, I went, this actually would be an amazing musical. Like, the songs, what I was hearing from TikTok matched perfectly with the atmosphere and the vibe of the movie itself.
So the story now famously goes that a young woman in New Jersey who's a school teacher named Emily Jacobson, who is a super Disney fan, created a squealy little sound, really song kind of, on TikTok that was called Ode to Remy. And I will spare everybody and not sing it, but it's quite catchy. And it sort of lived online, and it got some attention, and people were sharing it sort of as they do. She posted it on TikTok, of course. And it was picked up by a musical theater writer named Dan Mertzlift, who heard the track, loved it, and thought, how fun would this be to sort of make a musical version of this?
Remy, the Ratatouille, the rat of all my dreams. I praise you, oh Ratatouille, may the world remember your name.
So after I posted this video and all of this other original content started coming out, and it just became this big collaborative community of people all over the world engaging, not only songwriters, not only performers, costume designers, directors, producers, everyone talking about this theoretical Ratatouille show. And then all of a sudden we started getting press, and it started with Variety and Billboard. And then we got the New York Times, and the New York Times were actually the first people to get a statement from Disney where they said, you know, they're happy that all of us are engaging with the content. And I was surprised that even any of that was happening.
There were 250 million people engaging with the idea of a Ratatouille musical. That was a lot of people. And there was tens of thousands of creators across the globe who had contributed to the Ratatouille TikTok musical. Those were outstanding and outlandish numbers for theater. And it was at that point where I said, gosh, there are all these people who are participating in the idea of creating a musical, and how amazing is that, and how important is that? And I said, we have to recognize these people. We have to recognize these people as creators and as future audiences. And we need to be sure that these creators, young and old, realize that they are welcome in our space, in our community, and on Broadway. Because if they're not going to be the next Pasek and Paul, which I firmly believe that a lot of these kids who are creating on TikTok will be, there's certainly going to be future audiences. And the thing that we know more than anything right now is we need to like crash open the doors of our world and not have a rarefied art form, and make it accessible. And we need to welcome new audiences in drastic and bold ways. And that was what inspired me to call a friend at Disney, who then put me in touch with Tom Schumacher.
So it was the night before Thanksgiving. I was getting ready to go to bed because I was spending Thanksgiving alone in my apartment, and Michael and I get this text on our group text from Greg being like, have you heard about this Ratatouille TikTok musical situation? What do you know about it? We need to make a show. And it's like, pretty close to midnight. I'm really tired. And I'm like, oh, Greg, that's like such a great idea. Totally great idea. Let's talk about it later. I fall asleep. And I woke up the next day and it was just like a barrage of rat emojis on my phone. And Michael and Greg going back and forth. And famously, Michael, I think, had a few glasses of champagne. And basically, we had committed ourselves to working on a Ratatouille treatment, which was really exciting. But we didn't yet know that the deadline was going to be January 1st, i.e. like in a month.
I think one of the reasons that Patrick and I felt so comfortable with the really quick timeline and with the really streamlined, sprint to production on this project was that this was not our project. This was a project that had been developed over months with thousands of collaborators on TikTok. This had already had workshops and revisions and, out of town tryouts, but just on different feeds, on different TikTok feeds across the world, really. And I studied as a dramaturg in graduate school. So a lot of that toolkit is really like editing, seeing what the creators intend for their piece to do, and then helping them to find a shape and a form and to clarify the storytelling.
From that first day, once I knew that we were ready to go, what those songs were going to be, I had to do an arrangement or write a new song one a day. And that was our goal. I would write it, and then it would go to Macy. And if we stayed on that schedule, then everything would be ready for our recording session. So it just became a conveyor belt of me writing it, Macy orchestrating it, off to everyone.
I love it. These chords here are my favorite thing ever. And this chord.
And then it's just...
Yes. I love it.
Don't waste your whiskers on dreaming, trying to see life as I do. Taking the smell of it steaming, this wonderful dump here in front of you.
And eventually, over 13 days, which was an arrangement a day, a song a day, we got to the recording session. So like from the first arrangement to the recording session was less than 2 weeks, which I don't think has ever been done on that short amount of time, where the files didn't even exist. We had no finale files of these songs. 2 of the songs that I wrote with Kate Leonard didn't exist yet. And I love a deadline, and it was fun to call Kate and say, hey, we need 2 new songs for the show, and then you also need a bunch of new lyrics. Also, we have to write both of these songs in the next 2 days because Macy needs them because they're going to be like the biggest songs. So like, we really got to get on it. She was like, yeah, sounds great. I feel like that's everyone in this entire process is, yeah, we can do that. Totally. We can make anything work.
I had very recently, before all this, founded an orchestra called the Broadway Sinfonietta. It's an all-female identifying and majority women of color orchestra. And we had just put out our debut video. Greg Nobile, he had seen that video and put my name forward to orchestrate Ratatouille and also use my orchestra to record it. Like, going into it, I was like, okay, so we've got these like 11 TikTok songs that were all written by different people with different degrees of like recording. Some were a demo, some were a fully fleshed out, like produced track. And none of these people know each other. How is this going to sound and feel like a musical?
What under normal circumstances would have been a hindrance, which was everyone's far-flung geographic locations, in this instance became quite a gift because it allowed us to literally be working around the clock, almost like an investment banking firm, or something like that. There was Lucy in London, and obviously David and we were in New York, and people were in Florida, and people were in California. And so there started to be this rotating group of folks on call.
One of my biggest surprises of working on this project was getting to meet Eleanor, the choreographer, and discovering that Eleanor has a massive TikTok following and is actually a TikTok expert. Like in many ways, Eleanor really became like the Ratatouille TikTok dramaturg. Like we would be in, the very few creative meetings that we had as like a full creative team. And we would be like, well, how do we do that? And Eleanor would be like, well, there's this effect, there's that effect, there's that effect. You can do that. There's this bit of choreography that works well with that effect and it can communicate that.
I am super influenced by what the music sounds like and how the audience experience it, and making sure to emphasize certain accents in the music or certain feelings of the music. So when I'm creating, that's my number one goal, is to match the music in the body. So when you're watching it and hearing it, they blend together. And then also making sure that that narrative is super clear.
I was driving home on the day that we wanted to lock the script. So I was driving home for Christmas, finishing the script, and I got home and my parents were like, welcome home. And I was like, I can't talk. We have to lock the script. And I like went up to my sister's room and Michael and I did a final read through, just the two of us, of the script in really, really bad French accents on my phone before we sent it out.
Watching the piece on January 1st, 2021, I would be lying if I told you that it was like a fun experience. I was incredibly anxious.
It's bizarre because if we were doing this in a Broadway production, like before opening night, so to say, like I would have seen the production probably hundreds of times and probably at least 20 previews before getting to that point. So we were all watching the final cut for the first time.
I had this like tingle sensation everywhere in anticipation of, what is this going to be? Like, I don't even know, which was super exciting and nerve-wracking at the same time. I was sitting on the couch with my mom and my husband going, let's see how it goes. I guess we'll all find out together. And that actually was very refreshing to kind of release what was going to be the final product.
We had strategically chosen January 1st as a moment to like turn the page on this incredibly difficult year and look forward to something. And there's actually something so beautiful about like this optimistic story about this little silly rat that I think a lot of people, young and old, sort of clinged on to and were so pleased with. And it was so amazing to watch that response on the first day and to climb over the weekend, sort of good old fashioned word of mouth, as more people sort of tuned in over the next 3 days to watch it. It was one of the great joys of this very dark time.
Paris, I hope you're ready for Remy on the rise. With passion and perseverance, surprising for his eyes. This gastronome, it's fine and ready to proclaim that the world will remember my name.
So one of the reasons that I think this type of movement took place on TikTok and nowhere else is specifically the way that people are able to engage with other people on TikTok. That you have the duet feature, which allows someone to take your video and then duet it with them singing on top of it or doing choreography to your song.
Well, Mommy never had to face the dinner rush when orders came flooding in and every dish is different and none are simple in all of the different cooking types, but must arrive at the customer's table exactly at the same time, hot and perfect.
Do you understand?
Not particularly.
You're such a stupid boy. Just listen to me.
Okay.
If you want to make it in the kitchen,
yes, ma'am,
you can't just flail your arms on.
Right. Got it.
We had so many writers on Ratatouille from different countries and different walks of life, and I think that Ratatouille has really challenged our imaginations for like who can get to create in the Broadway landscape and whose work can get made. And as we're having conversations about diversity and racial justice and gender equality and all of these things, it's like, okay, well, the people who are writing and contributing work, if you're saying, oh, well, I don't know any writers who have XYZ backgrounds who are making this kind of work, like, you're not really confined to the pool of New York anymore, right? Like, there are so many people who are contributing that kind of work. And I'm excited to see how creators who traditionally haven't had access to this like very exclusive Broadway production pipeline might find a way into that.
I think as we talk about how we find work by more writers, to make sure that our efforts to diversify our talent pipeline is just as robust and aggressive as our pipeline to identify new audiences to come to shows. It taught us a lot about that needs to become priority.
I'm hoping that this gives ideas to producers in the theater that there are more non-traditional ways to create shows than this 10-year-long process and still create something that is exciting that people want to watch.
To me, musical theater is an experimental theater art form. It's a necessarily experimental art form. I mean, people are singing and dancing. So I would hope that there's more adventure and experimentalism moving into the American musical theater. I think that would be really thrilling to see.
I'm very excited by the possibilities that these artists on TikTok have created. I also think it's important to center that these are artists creating these TikToks. These are makers creating the TikToks. Sometimes I feel like I use TikTok as a stand-in for a whole group of people, and like I want to like decentralize like the app of it all and be like, these people are making with the app this amazing work.
My favorite part about this entire process is the fact that there isn't a single person or a couple of people who are the reason that this is happening. The only reason that we even got anywhere, let alone a concert benefit, was because of the entire community that built this.
Stranger things have happened. There's a miracle somewhere every day. You could make one happen. Come on, little chef, you know what they say. Anyone can cook. This I guarantee. And though I can't cook yet, I take a bet that I can cook. With you helping me. With you helping me.